And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Before we get to our next guest, Tom Kelly, quickly to Carol in Meridian. Carol, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Thanks for taking my call, Kevin. First-time caller. I first want to say condolences to the family that lost their child. It's just very sensitive to me. I lost my brother when he was young. He was a passenger also. And I've been talking to my kids and my husband a lot about just the last 3 days with all the accidents occurring. You talked about what can we do to make a safer situation for the community. And I kind of feel like maybe we can set some timing on the lights near these high schools. I pass several high schools driving my own children in the morning. And maybe during these high commute travel times when we have commuters going to work, when we have high schoolers driving, when we have moms driving, maybe we can make those just solid lights during peak times and put them back. Because I don't believe in putting more controls, necessarily in place, but I realize at that time sometimes we have inexperienced drivers out on the road too. Another solution I think would be to communicate. I have a teen driver that drives himself to another school, and I communicate all the accidents that I see driving each morning. And he goes out of his way and adjusts his timing when he leaves to make sure he's not driving in the thick of things. And I do the same thing myself. I'll leave the neighborhood that I live in differently just to get protected green lights to make my turns. So I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to I felt these were kind of common sense approaches.
Well, no, and I agree with you. And, it can equate to being respectful of your neighborhood or someone else's neighborhood, or in a parking lot where people don't look at all when they cross the street anymore. I mean, I don't know how many people I've almost hit because they just don't look. Right.
It's the time of year also. I kind of feel I've been really talking almost every night to my kids, especially because they're young. It's the time of year. We have a lot of people out of state traveling here. We have a lot of people moving from different states moving in here that just haven't adjusted to kind of, I'll put it our way, a lifestyle.
Right.
And it's a daily communication that I have in my house lately about take your time. I don't care if you're late to school. I don't care if I'm late anywhere. I'd rather have you alive because I know what it's like to lose a family member because of human error, which is likely what happens in situations like these. And it's awful, but to live with that every day, it makes you really appreciate. Don't be in a rush anywhere and just wait till the snow comes. It's only going to get worse.
Carol, sorry for your loss, and thank you for thinking of us today at KIDO Talk Radio.
Well, thanks for what you do. I appreciate it.
Have a good day.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye-bye. Let's go to the CEO of ID Experts, Tom Kelly, is going to tell us how we can't get hijacked and scammed and everything else to protect our online presence. Tom, thank you for your patience. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. And your caller, you just kind of is a very stark reminder that while we're going to talk about an important subject, it is nowhere near as important as protecting the lives of our kids and our families in this very busy time and any time during the year, and those people who suffer great losses. So I'll keep that family in my prayers.
Well, thank you, sir. The holidays are a great time, but for a lot of us who have lost people, it is a difficult time. We appreciate your sensitivity. I've got a good one for you, and I'm sure you're aware of this, where people come in and hijack your phone or your computer, and then they want the ransom, and the law enforcement isn't equipped to deal with it. But this case in North Carolina, the state's largest county, Mecklenburg County, where they're looking at paying, I don't think it's $25,000, I think it's $250,000 to the hackers to get their files back from the county's computer. And if it can happen to a big county, it can happen to all of us, right?
Absolutely. And this issue of ransomware, that's exactly what you called it. It's a constant threat. It's a threat. It's stories like that make it to the news. We've heard about Sony, where in fact they hacked in and they were holding Sony hostage because they were going to release sensitive information about their clients, and of course some of that information did get out. It happens in all kinds of conditions where hackers get in and lock up sensitive data or threaten to make it public, and or threaten to destroy data, threaten to destroy things that are already there. And that can happen to the individual basis. Granted, you're probably less of a target on ransomware because, they're looking for a payment, and you may or may not have the capacity to do that. So, but it falls in that same area of why we need to be vigilant and just being alert to these kinds of threats and how they get inside your computer, how they work their way in.
Well, Tom, let's talk a little bit about that. It's funny. I can't believe how popular online buying has become. Maybe we go back to harken back as kids when we got that package in the mail or something like that. It just seems to be fun. And with that, though, comes some threats of people stealing your information and cloning your identity and hijacking you. How big an issue will that be this Christmas season?
Well, I think it's going to be bigger this season than it was last season because we're doing more online buying than we did last year. Our lives are busier, and you said, yeah, it is kind of fun to click a button and it shows up in the mail. And but it's also a statement of how busy we are and how quick we're trying to move from place to place. And so when you go into these sites, there's some very practical things that people ought to keep in mind to make their Christmas season, their holiday season, the joyous season it tends to be, and not have a black mark on it from somebody scamming it.
Well, what would you recommend, sir?
Well, there's a series. These are they're kind of common sense kinds of things. So first of all, if you're going to go to a website, make sure you know that you're going to a website that you can trust. And how do you do that? What is it? What are little simple things? Well, you're going to know the larger ones that retailers that you've gone to before, ones you've never heard of. If you go to the URL, the bar on the top where you do your searches, and you don't see that little padlock that sits beside the website name when you go to it, then in fact you might be getting an indication there that you don't have a secure website, a website that in fact has the security procedures in place that what you transmit to them or going over the internet is in fact encrypted. Once you're at that website, that's a different story, but at least that communication is encrypted. If you're using passwords, well, change your passwords. And if you have to set up a new password to buy something or to open an account, don't use the password you use for your bank account. And the things that are most sensitive and most important, and don't use the name of your dog or your cat, your street address, your name with a number right beside it. Use something that somebody would have some challenges, in fact, breaking into. You get emails probably that are fake. You get these during this period of time. We're doing so much to get the fake email from your allegedly from your financial institution saying, click here because we've seen unusual activity on your account. Click here. Financial institutions don't communicate that way. They would call you. They would contact you. They wouldn't send you an email to have you click into an unknown location. Greeting cards, digital greeting cards that, somebody asks you to open that, they can bring malware with them. They can bring viruses to your computer. I don't want to make everybody completely paranoid, but you just use common sense in when you're conducting your financial affairs. And you're buying and make the convenience of buying really a convenience, not an introduction to getting set up.
Well, how do you, and that's the scary thing because you have this emotional pull, Tom, when all of a sudden you get this, hey, your Yahoo password has changed, blah, 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 log in now, and it looks so official, or, like you said, the banking thing. Yeah,
well, what I do is if I get first of all, if you go up and look at the address that the email came from, many, many times the address gives you the first indicator. It'll come from some place that has no connection to the institution that they're sending you. No connection whatsoever. They've stolen somebody else's email, and they're hoping that you're not even going to look at that email address. The second thing you can do is you can pick up and call their support line. You can go online, you can find their support line and call them. The third thing you can do is you can exit out of that and literally go to their website. Not go through the link that was given you in that email, but go directly to their website, click on, and they will have areas of there that will direct you to customer support. So that's those are just a few tips. But clicking onto the link that sent you, we get emails from friends. Sadly, I've got members of our family, our extended family, will send me. I'll get an email that'll come with something that says, "Oh, you'll find this interesting," and I don't click on any of that stuff. I don't know where it's come from. I don't know. If it really seems important, I'll call them and say, "What'd you send me, by the way? And where'd you get it?" And maybe there's another way that I can access it. But our computers are too easy for us to get into right now.
Indeed. What about the Wi-Fi? How secure is that?
Well, the Wi-Fi, the ranging levels of security. If you're sitting at your favorite coffee shop, or maybe you're sitting in an airport waiting for your flight, I wouldn't necessarily be conducting business in these public Wi-Fi areas. I'm not saying that they're not secure, but sitting in large public areas with your data that's being transmitted there are mechanisms and methods and technologies that the unsavory folks can use to try to intercept and steal information there. And so, you might, looking at information, reading a periodical, those kinds of things, that's fine. Maybe doing your emails, that's the next step up, but I wouldn't be transmitting financial information and buying and selling in public Wi-Fi areas.
What about airplanes?
Airplanes, same thing. I wouldn't be buying on the airplane. Right. I'd use it to surf the internet. I'd use it to look at my emails, but I wouldn't actually be conducting business.
Tom Kelly, we appreciate this. We appreciate you waking up early since you're in San Francisco, CEO of ID Experts. Anything else that you'd like to impart if people want to get a hold of you, what your business does? What can we do to repay you for the great content this morning, sir?
Well, one thing I'd like to have people think about is that this is a way of life. You and I used to go on vacation, and if you came home, your front door was open and your TV's gone, something's gone wrong. But, nowadays, you don't really know when your identity or somebody's misusing the various things that are important to you to either defraud you or hurt you financially or other things. You can buy these identity protection plans. They're very inexpensive, and they provide a source of comfort and peace of mind that if something should ever happen, that A, you get alerts if it's going, and then if the bad thing happens, somebody uses it, you can get your identity restored by professionals. My company does offer one product like that. We probably would protect 25 million people in the United States today, and our site is myidcare.com. myidcare, myidcare.com, and you can find out the kinds of services we have there.
Now, before you go, we do have a question. Barb in Sunny Slope for Tom Kelly. Good morning, Barb. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning. Yes, I have a question. He asked he said specifically, look at the email address that the item came from. And I'm thinking, well, I'm getting email addresses and I look or emails that are suspect, and I look at the address it came from, and it's from my own email. And no, I didn't send it to myself. What do you do there?
That means somebody's gotten your email. You may well have been hacked, Barbara. And so what you do is that the first thing, when anytime you got something suspicious that shows up like that, the first thing I do is I change my passwords on things that are important. That's the first thing I did that. Second, yeah, that's good. Second thing I do is that I make sure my virus information is up to date, okay? That all my virus protections, and so you're probably okay. You're probably okay. And the last step you can do is you can head over to one of the electronic stores that will in fact scan and search and reset these things. And just as a simple precaution, you can do that. And those are the steps that I would personally do if I were doing that. But sometimes all you have to do is scan over that email address and say it comes from Bank of America. They'll be saying you do business with them. and you look up at the email address, and it says that it's coming from some name at something.edu. Those are that means that university's email account has been hacked, and they're utilizing that as outgoing mail areas. So, and your email could just have been somebody may well have sent you an email and set up a technology that makes it looks like it's coming from your email, and it's really not. But once I see something, when I see something suspicious like that, I'd sure as heck go in fact do the steps I just said.
Okay, so you could bring it to some account, store account, and have them clear it. What do I ask them to clear?
You just tell them what you just told me.
Okay.
Seriously, tell them what you just told me. And most of these have sufficient, what I call the basic cyber capabilities to go in and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to clean this up, and we're going to cleanse your machine and just make sure it's okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, good enough.
All right, thank you. Tom, we appreciate you. You have a good one, brother.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas to you and your listeners, and everybody be safe. Take care of one another.
All right. Thank you, Tom Kelly. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And we continue on. Let's go to Tess. Tess, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tess.
Hi, good morning. Well, your screen caller and myself just spent enough time to solve the problems of the world talking on the phone. So what a great guy he is. Hey, so, gosh, I don't know. I was going to call in about the stoplights and the deaths and such, and we talked about inattentive driving tickets. And I don't even know if the county or city in here, if they have those traffic teams or not. But then I heard your issue about, identity theft. And, I've had 4 of those. And so after a while, it makes you feel like you're multiple personality. And so I thought, gosh, I ought to say something about that real quick, because there really isn't a whole lot you can do about them. You can contact the police, make a report, pay $6 to have, something put on your credit report. And then when you go to get credit, then it flags that there's something wrong because you put something onto it. And basically at the end of the day, you just need to take yourself out to lunch, because it takes years to clear. And you have to go on and just have your life, So anyway, all my thoughts just went with your phone screener. So I appreciate him.
That would be Ray Amaya. So let's talk a little bit about what happens when your identity's stolen. What was that like?
Well, what happens is that you get bills that don't belong to you. So I spent 5 years perfecting a debt challenge letter to send into, the attorneys that were trying to collect on bills that were not mine, and it works. You have a hard time getting credit cards, so you have to decide if you want to just become, someone who doesn't exist. So you get rid of all your credit cards and let your credit just trash out and just, use cash. You can do that. If you try to go back in and rebuild your credit, the biggest issue is if you couldn't get a loan before for something, you're probably not going to get a loan for something else, when you rebuild your credit. But the biggest thing is, don't let it destroy your life. Those Equifax, when they came out and said that they had a theft, I called up and you couldn't get through on the phone. So you type in on their site and you say, was I part of this theft? And they may come back and actually what they said is, looks like you probably had your identity stolen again. So we had 5 people that we knew down in the Treasure Valley here, and we all sat around. They all used the cell phones, and then they went onto their computers, and they did the same thing. They typed in and said, am I part of this? Did I lose my identity? And it came back and said, yes, you probably are. The only problem was they didn't use their real names. And they didn't use their real Social Security numbers. It was all made up. So according to Equifax, everybody has lost it. But how much money do they make at $6 a whack to put blocks on all of those? And shame on Idaho. Idaho is one of the ones that when you have an identity theft that's not part of something big, they charge you to put blocks on those. So somebody's making a lot of money off of that.
Well, you know how we love to make money here.
That's right. So anyway, well, hey, my birthday's coming up, And you know what? I'm going to take my best friend out and buy her dinner. And then I'm going to go downtown and I'm going to put money into those money parking machines and get some people, some free parking. And then I'm going to the mall. And I'm going to go down there and I'm going to put a quarter in every single candy machine that I can find so some kid doesn't have to pay. And then when I get home before I leave town, I'm going to call the grade school that's right across the street here from my family's place.
Well,
and I'm going to ask them if they got 2 or 3 kids that haven't been able to pay their lunch meal yet. And I'm going to go pay it for them.
I appreciate for your itinerary today.
Yeah. So happy birthday to me and everybody else that are December babies.
Well, thank you for making a difference into the lives of our listeners. Thank you, Tess.
Well, thank you for letting me talk. I appreciate you letting me say my piece.
You like to talk.
Thank you. You know that.
I do.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to have my day.
All right, Tess. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You won't hear that anywhere else in Idaho or America. Now will you? Traffic and weather. Let's find out what's happening in your world at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning.
KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller with you. Our friend Rob Spear joining us, the athletic director from the University of Idaho. Good to have you with us, sir.
Kevin, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be on the best morning show in Boise.
Thank you. We'll try and live up to that. It has been a crazy year in the world of college athletics, the football coaching carousel, people talking about $1 million buyouts and everything like that as opposed to the student athlete. We love having you in because it's almost like a state of the union, if you will. Your thoughts on the year that was?
Well, it's a crazy time for sure. I used this as an example the other day when I'm thinking about the University of Nebraska. They terminated the contract of the football coach and the AD, and it cost them $15 million to do that. Kevin, that's our entire budget at the University of Idaho for athletic programs. So you start throwing around those numbers, and it's shocking. But I also think it shows a problem in the world of intercollegiate athletics where expenditures have gotten out of control, and certainly the Power 5 group has separated themselves. And at some point in time, some entity is going to have to make a decision to really get intercollegiate athletics right-sized in the right way. I know at the University of Idaho, I got into this business because I want to be able to change people's lives and change a kid's lives that's a first-generation college kid, much like I was. First-generation kid, had the opportunity to come in and get a college degree, and that degree has changed my life and changed the course of my life. So I'd like to see it get back to a truer sense of what intercollegiate athletics is really all about.
You know, we take a look at the changing society today, the millennials, the plurals. Are you an old-school AD with your philosophy in the Moneyball cybermetrics world that seems to be percolating into every aspect of our lives when it comes to sports and intercollegiate athletics?
Well, we obviously like to evaluate and use the analytics in the right way, and that's something that I think my point earlier about doing things for the right reasons. I think universities and college campuses, I know our university, we have a great university, great research enterprise, great, we're a premier research institution. So we really ought to engage our faculty that have that expertise in the world of intercollegiate athletics to tap in that expertise and use some of those analytic skills and take care of, do something different, something new, things outside the box.
But it's become a business. We're talking wins and losses. We're talking revenue generated by. Look, I worked in all the big conferences, the SEC, the ACC, and the old Big East, and a little Big Ten. So I understand it. It is drama. It is a soap opera. It is physicality. And we forget we're dealing with, we'll primarily focus in on football for a while, young men's lives here. It's a feeder system to those that are fortunate to go up to the pros, but not a lot of people focus in on graduation rates anymore.
Well, in a way, you have to with the NCAA rules and then the APR standards and the new emphasis on graduation success. What you're going to see here shortly is, and even though we want to talk a little bit about football, and I certainly agree with what you said, Kevin, the NCAA is coming out now where they're going to actually award an academic unit from the NCAA basketball units to high-performing academic institutions. So I think people are trying to make sure that academics and graduations is still very, very important in our world. But at the end of the day, it is about wins and losses. It really is at any level. we have gone through numerous strategic planning exercises in our department, and at the end of the day, the number one strategy you should have is WIN in football.
Rob Spear joining us, Kevin Miller, as we continue on KIDO Talk Radio, talking about money, athletics, academics. Let's, it's funny, now you've almost got me wanting to switch over to collegiate basketball because I'd like to talk to you about the one and done. But for those folks that are listening right now, maybe they have friends that are into football and such. What are the differences between the Power Five and this Group of Five?
Well, it's certainly money, and it's the money generated by the college football playoff. And that money is really, even though the Group of Five schools get a piece of that, and the Group of Five schools compete with a pool of money, at the end of the year you determine within those 5 conferences who is ranked the highest, and you get more money who's ranked the highest. But it pales into comparison with what those Power 5 schools are getting financially. And I think that's the biggest separation, is the financial separation between the Power 5 and the Group of 5 continues to widen, and I don't see it getting any closer anytime soon.
Sure, and then we have now people are getting paid to go to school, not just scholarships, but is it the cost of attendance or something of that, of some of these bigger programs, like you're talking about your Pac-12 programs or whatever other Power 5 conferences. So, I mean, there you have, again, you might say, well, I can get a bigger stipend if I go to this school as opposed to that school.
Kids are looking at that these days and age, and what you're talking about is full cost of attendance, and every institution calculates their full cost of attendance. At the University of Idaho, it's about $4,000 more. And there is not one athletic director in the country that wouldn't advocate for giving their kids more money to live on and operate on. And I look back, not too long ago, it used to be a scholarship at the University of Idaho was the exact same as a scholarship at Ohio State University or University of Michigan. You got your tuition fees, room and board, and maybe that's probably the basics. And now with the full cost of attendance, I think it does lead into competing for kids who want to have more resources in their pocket. Now, that's, like I said earlier, on one hand, I agree with it. On the other hand, what we really need to do is focus on getting them educated, and I think we're starting to lose that a little bit as we move forward, and the money is driving how colleges and universities operate. And the full cost of attendance was really driven by the Power 5 schools who had student-athletes claiming they didn't have enough dollars to live on, and here you are paying coaches millions and millions of dollars a year, and you have student-athletes that say they don't have enough per diem, enough to make their monthly expenses. So that whole full cost of attendance was driven by the Power 5. And, again, if you're in a position to fund it, it's a great thing. If you're not in a position to fund it, you look at when is enough.
But does that impact the academics of an institution? You look at Louisiana State University. They had to get rid of their coach, Les Miles. They hired another one. But, this was a university that was looking at laying off faculty and stuff. So in your view, as an athletic director, the University of Idaho, been doing it for many, many years. You talk to these folks. What are the situations of these universities? On one hand, they're starving for money, at least in LSU's case. On the other hand, they've got this big-time, hugely successful athletic program.
There are probably 10 programs in the country, and I would imagine LSU may be one of them, that are truly, truly self-sustaining. And when I say self-sustaining, they get absolutely zero money from the institutional side. Most of us aren't in that position. We have to have subsidies from the institution. So when you're in a Power 5 and you have this money in significant dollars, I guess you can say, we're bringing this revenue in. We should be able to spend it appropriately. And, well, they do spend it appropriately, but spend it in a way that helps their athletic program. But I do think they have an opportunity to help bridge the gap a little bit on the academic side. And I know of several examples where athletic departments are helping the academic side of the institution with some of their resources. But, again, it's all about the money you're able to bring in and how you spread it around. And if you have extra dollars, I think it's a great thing that you give it to the academic side. But your point's well taken. It's a tough sell on a campus where you have the academic side, and that's really what the institution's all about. Everything revolves around the academic side, and here you are laying faculty off, but your athletic programs are flourishing. It's certainly a disconnect.
Well, and let's face it, whether it's the University of Idaho, whether it's the folks across the street, whether it's the University of Alabama, if your programs are successful, people want to go to your school. And we see that. It's amazing how many schools, UCF now, they want to go be associated with a winner. It's amazing.
It's true, and the data's out there. You look at the successful athletic programs and what it has done for enrollment and what it has done for notoriety, especially when you get on national television, you're able to get exposure. I know several institutions have really, really taken advantage of playing midweek games and being able to have that exposure and in prime time and be able to advertise the great things of your university. But
aren't we losing something? And by the way, Rob Spero, I guess, athletic director from the University of Idaho, Kevin Miller here with you as we continue on KIDO Talk Radio, because on one hand, and again, we're old school in the age of gaming and texting, but you have these midweek games, and you've got empty stadiums.
Yeah.
So, but you get the exposure. Institutions across the country are struggling with that. You, as an athletic director on the front line, how do schools balance that?
Well, it is a balance. I mean, what is more important? Is it the exposure? Is it playing that midweek game in front of empty stadiums? And we had the opportunity to play a midweek game this year in Troy, and the attendance was horrible. But you're on ESPN, and so you look at what the value of that is from a recruiting standpoint. Again, giving your institution a little advertising. So it's truly a balance, but it's all, again, Kevin, driven by television. Television has driven it all. Now, I don't know where that all goes at the end of the day. You look at ESPN, and they're laying people off. And probably 12, 15 months ago, I put together a presentation where I compared what all these layoffs are meaning to ESPN. And really, it started with when you originally got your cable package, you were automatically paying ESPN. And now you have cord cutters and
you have non-sports fans that are still paying ESPN.
Well, yeah, but now you have the ability to be a cord cutter, or you can be a bundler, so you can just pay for what you want to watch. And consequently, the number of subscribers to ESPN is falling. I think the number was 10,000 a month. And you start to calculate that out in a few years, and you look at ESPN's financial obligations with the NFL and Monday Night Football and Major League Baseball and all their obligations, the math isn't working out very well. So what happens in the future when, maybe these revenues dry up and it's going to change the whole world of intercollegiate athletics from a television standpoint? I don't know how long this will take, Kevin, but everything from a conference realignment standpoint was what kind of value can you bring from TV sets? Do you live in a highly populated area? Can you bring TV sets because we want you in our league because we're going to be able to generate more revenue? Well, if television dollars start to dry up, what happens in 15 or 20 years? Well, what I think happens is you're going to see everything reorganized around geography, where I think it makes sense, where people can travel to games and they can sit in the opposing team stands really easy. And that's what I think creates a rival, is when your fans can go sit in another team's stadium and vice versa. That's really what creates a rival. So I really think 15, 20 years from now, you're going to see a whole restructuring, and a lot of it will be based around geography.
Like it used to be. Rob Spero joining us, athletic director of the University of Idaho. Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. What do you want to say to the Vandals here in the Treasure Valley that are so hardy, that love their university, that love your university? I see them all the time. They wear their gear. Our friend Bob Zimmerman's always carrying your flag, as among others. He's a Vandal, an old Nampa High Bulldog. What do you say to the folks here? I know you'd love to get out here more, but we always want to take advantage of your presence here in the Treasure Valley.
Well, number one thing I want to say is thank you to all of them, because you're absolutely right. Our Vandal fans are the most passionate fans, and they really, really care about our university. And it really stems from the university itself, because when you show up on our campus and you're able to go to school there 4 or 5 years and you really feel like you belong and it's a family, and we always say that we're a Vandal family. So, number one, I want to thank them and thank them for supporting their institution. I really think our future is ahead of us. We just need to have stability as we move forward, and we need to be able to position ourselves to be able to take advantage of that stability.
Well, I was just going to say, you kind of threw me off there with the answer there with stability and such. But let's talk about the move from FBS to FCS. You've handled that for the past couple of years, going back to the Big Sky. A lot of people are a little upset about that, sir. But, on the other hand, you're going to have some great regional rivalries, and it's tough to get up for, let's say, Coastal Carolina, good football team, or Georgia State or Troy State. Again, great if you're down in the South, but we're here in the West. So a return to the Big Sky, what does that mean for the sports program, primarily football, because that's what people are talking about?
Well, it is. It's all based on that, and the institution made the decision 2 years ago, and I've been asked here recently because we just essentially played our last FBS game against Georgia State, what people thought about our tenure as an FBS institution. And what I've said, it's really interesting when you look at the University of Idaho. We're 3-0 in bowl games. Each of those bowl games was won in a different conference. The first bowl game was when we were a member of the Big West Conference, and then what happened? The football part of the Big West imploded. And then we bounce around. We finally get into the Western Athletic Conference, which was a great fit for the University of Idaho. We finally build the program. We win a bowl game. 2 years later, conference implodes because schools are leaving the conference. And then we get a little more stability in the Sun Belt. Finally get our program turned around again, win a bowl game, but now you're faced with the not being able to be part of the Sun Belt again. So when I mentioned stability early on, I think that's what this program really, really needs, is we need to be in an area where we can have stability, because when we get in and there's some stability, we'll be successful. And I think that's a key for us moving forward. When we have that stability, we're going to be able to build this program to be the program that people want. And at the end of the day, I think it's really, really important for us to be the best that we can be where we're at. And if we're the best we can be where we're at, the future will take care of itself. And I certainly understand how people are upset about the transition. But at the end of the day, we just didn't have anywhere to go. We had no conference. And the independence piece that we could have taken on, boy, I think you talk about stability. I don't think independence gives you a lot of stability, and it really puts your coaches in a tough position recruiting. And you look at the independent programs across the country.
You look at BYU is struggling.
Well, I'll share this story with you, Kevin. When we were trying to figure out what we were going to do, and one of my responsibilities was to see what we could do by putting together an independent schedule. I had the opportunity to sit with Tom Holmoe, the BYU athletic director, when the University of Idaho was hosting the NCAA tournament 2 years ago in Spokane, and I said, hey, would you be willing to play us in some football games? And he looked at me and says, why are you doing this? He said, we can't even afford to stay independent. And that was kind of eye-opening to me. But it's a tough road to go independent. I think, again, let's go where we can have stability, be as successful as we can be, and then whatever happens in the future, you're going to be in a great position. And I think we said it earlier, you have to win. So let's go where we have stability and where we can be successful. Now, it's not going to be easy moving the football program into the Big Sky, because there's some good football programs there. And I've always felt that FCS programs have had a heck of a recruiting advantage, because what they're allowed to do is they can take a drop down from an FBS program as long as that student-athlete football player has 2 years of eligibility. So you go through and you look at rosters of FCS programs, you're going to see a lot of transfers. And I think one I was just checking the other day was Jacksonville State. I mean, they have athletes from Auburn and Alabama.
It's a popular place to go. Yeah.
And it's crazy how much talent those programs have. Now, moving forward, we need to take advantage of that rule too.
Rob Spear is our guest, talking about college athletics, academics, the future of sports in general, and the impact the university's athletic program has on its academic institution. We'll continue on here. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And we want to thank Rob Spear, who joins us from the University of Idaho. Appreciate his time. Coming up, we're going to preview 7 Cares, Idaho Shares, or Idaho Shares, 7 Cares. Anyway, it's a great event coming up tomorrow. First, traffic and weather together. I want to remind everybody, I'd like to invite you, if you're going to be at Fred Meyer tomorrow or at Albertsons and you have a little extra canned items or food or anything else, I'd urge you to donate those to 7 Cares Day. We'll be here at Albertson Stadium tomorrow. Myself, Mark Johnson, and the great crew from Channel 7. It'll be on Channel 7. It's a really an outstanding event. Dave Petzo will swing in as well. We love it when the kids come by with their change. So any Fred Meyer, any Albertsons tomorrow, 7 Cares, Idaho Shares, 7 Cares. We'd love to see you there, and give me a wave, would you? That'll be tomorrow at Albertson Stadium. Ray Amaya, great job as always, keeping the show rolling. Good day, God bless, and keep the faith.